Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I had the opportunity last week to sit on a panel discussion of where we are in the housing business in the Greater Toronto Area, and leveraging off of Ron Butler's comments, I wanted to make some suggestions that I had the privilege of making at this conference about where we are and what we need to do. As Ron said, I think what we've been in is an investor-led bubble in particularly condos in the Greater Toronto Area, and we're now therefore into a deflationary death spiral. As he said, we've gone from FOMO, fear of missing out, to FOOP, fear of overpaying, and so therefore we're stalled. We're stuck in neutral in a rut. People aren't willing to buy. Prices keep coming down, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy as prices keep going down and down and down, and people don't want to buy because they think that it's going to go down even more. And I think that we're faced with a situation, particularly in condos, where we were building for what investors wanted people to be building, so they could quickly turn a profit and flip it or rent it out, rather than what people really wanted to live in. And I think we need to change that. I think that the issue we've got is limited sales, falling prices, no new builds, falling building permits, falling building starts, laid off construction workers, and potential bankruptcies of developers, construction companies, etc. And this is going to be a challenge to our business. And therefore we need a bottom so that people can start buying again and have confidence that they're not wasting their money. We need new building. Otherwise, we're going to have a far worse affordability crisis in the future. We've got to get out of this boom, bust, boom cycle that we've been in. And so what do? I've got a 11-point plan that I'd like to tell you about tonight that I think we need to implement right away. And our governments, both municipal, provincial, and federal, have to get in the act immediately. Number one, we need to incentivize new building, even though the market has got large inventory of sales, because long-term we need more supply, as we well know. And so how are we going to do that when we've got developers that don't want to build because they can't make the sales, they can't get the construction financing, and they don't have confidence in pricing and or rental rates? I think the easiest and fastest way is get rid of development fees. Development fees have gone up 1,000% in the Greater Toronto Area. I think they were a bastardization of the growth pays for growth idea that led to the establishment of development fees. They're order of magnitudes larger than permit fees that you get in the United States or in other cities around North America, etc. They just don't make sense, and we need to reduce them. I would suggest, as you've seen in Mississauga and Vaughan, a dramatic reduction in development fees. I would suggest eliminate them for any housing, rental, or purchase less than $1 million. Have a 75% reduction between $1 million and $2 million, and have something like probably a 50% reduction for everything else. And we need to find, and I'll talk about this later, a different way to fund the infrastructure and servicing that we need for growth. But to have $100,000 to $150,000, which is equal to most people's down payment, to be paid in development fees up front to municipal governments that they end up not spending on the infrastructure for growth, go into a kitty that gets reserved for longer term, just doesn't make any sense. Number two, what we need is a radical reduction in the time it takes to get projects approved. It takes 2 to 3 times as long to get a project approved as it does to build it, and that makes no sense. We've talked about red tape and regulations federally on mining and pipelines and infrastructure. Well, you know what? Municipal governments are worse than that. And I think what we need to do is go from the 24 studies that we had, maybe not down to the 4 that were needed 2 decades ago, but reduction in the number of studies. We need to increase the amount of density and height that you can build as of right, so that not everything has to go through a whole long process. And we need to use some of the infrastructure monies that the province and the city has as incentives to municipalities to get rid of the red tape. And bottom line, we need to change the planning and development department to be more like the economic development department, that is trying to incentivize growth, is trying to attract businesses to their communities, is trying to help people get through the process rather than gum up the process and discourage development. Number 3, I think what we have is a dramatic need to harmonize zoning across the GTA, across different municipalities across different wards. We've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks about interprovincial trade barriers. Well, we've got intermunicipal trade barriers and even inter-ward trade barriers because we've got different rules in every different city, different zoning. How can you have economies of scale? How can you have, reasonable efficiency when you're redoing things every single time you have a new project in a new ward or a new municipality? It doesn't make any sense. And so therefore, we've got to have as of right for fourplexes. We've got to have as of right zoning, major transit station area, zoning and density we've been talking about for a couple of years. It should be implemented and make it easier for people to build rather than having to force developers and contractors to go through this arduous process over and over and over again. Number 4, I think that there was a study done by Bill that said that out of, I think it was 20 cities around North America, there were only 2 that demanded inclusionary zoning without giving incentives. I think we should be requiring inclusionary zoning. That's the only way we're going to get the kind of affordable housing that we need. But we should be incentivizing that with giving a density bonus for equal amounts of density equal to the amount that we are requiring in inclusionary zoning. So that if we require 2 floors of below market housing, we give the developer an incremental 2 floors than he otherwise would have had. Everyone tells me that people don't notice height over 6 stories, and yet for some reason it becomes this big bugaboo. And I think we need to make more reason in that regard. Number 5, I think we need to have the cities, the provinces, the federal governments contribute land. I heard about this great project that was done by Creatio and Dream, where the city leased land for $1 a year over a long-term basis, and they got the approvals done in less than a couple months time period. Well, that's the kind of orientation we need if we're going to get housing built. And so the cities, the provinces, the federal governments have got lots of land. And if we want to have housing built, particularly market housing or below market rate housing or social housing, those governments have to come to the table and contribute the land by way of land lease or something like that. We do need to have transit investment. More than 80% of all the condominiums built in the last couple of years have been built within a kilometer of a transit station. And so therefore people today do want to access transit. And so therefore we need to ensure that we've got good transit, and we need to increase the zoning around transit stations along the Bloor-Danforth subway line. We need to increase the transit investments on the Mississauga-Milton line, on a new Bolton line, and we need to ensure that there is density around those transit stations. We need to open up the Greenbelt. And this is controversial, I know, but I think conservation areas make a ton of sense for us to dedicate. But farmland, we're going to have abundant farmland that is done vertically in the future. I don't think that we're at risk of losing farmland. We're all eating more than enough. I think that we need to take land that is right across from serviced and infrastructure available land in Brampton, just north of Mayfield, and allow it to be developed as an example. Now, I'm not saying that we should be approving everything, but I think there is a fair amount of land within the Greenbelt that should be developed and can be developed. But obviously, when Premier Ford did this a year ago or a year and a half ago, he did it the wrong way. He did it with political influence, and that needs to be it needs to be done in a way that there's no question that there's no political interference. It is done such that land that is ready for a building that is got servicing readily available to it, infrastructure readily available to it, that isn't conservation lands, can be freed up from the Greenbelt. Greenbelts in London, we allowed development to take place on the other side of it, and we established lots of great transit to it. In New York City, there's Long Island Railway that can access more remote communities. We can't just create a moat around Toronto and expect there to be housing to be built. I think this establishment of the Greenbelt was done for very good environmental reasons, but I think what it's done is it's created a situation where we've effectively built a moat around Toronto. We've robbed our young people of an opportunity to dream of a single-family home, and we've harmed our housing situation long term. And so we need to have some more flexibility in that regard. I think number 8, the federal and provincial governments have done the right things in the GST, and we need all governments to do that and remove the GST from both housing for rental and for ownership, And I think it should be for more than just for first-time home buyers, because I think you want to have the person that is moving from $800,000 to $1.2 million house to do that, such that they open it up for the people that can move into their house that might be the lower cost house. We need to build that housing ladder. I think that we need to get rid of these land transfer taxes. Mobility is good. I think we want people to be able to move to the housing that's closer to their jobs. I think we need people to move up the housing ladder. I think we need to ensure that seniors or people that are empty nesters feel that they can move out of their house. And the land transfer tax, the double land transfer tax, just doesn't make any sense in that regard. Why are we disincentivizing mobility? That just doesn't make any logical sense. I think we need to have property tax harmonization around the Greater Toronto Area. It makes no sense that the property tax in Toronto is half what it is in the 905 on a mill rate, and it leads to some of the bastardization of what's going on from a housing standpoint, and the lack of movement and mobility for people in the Greater Toronto Area. And obviously that can't happen in a year, but it should be planned to occur over time. And I think that we need to think of a better way to fund municipal infrastructure. And I think that there's better models, whether it's tax increment financing, whether it's municipal tax bonds. I think that when we think about the way that we fund some electricity, pipelines, natural gas, etc., what we do is we raise a bond, we fund it, and fund that infrastructure, and we pay off that debt over time by way of taxes, increased property taxes, or by way of a charge, a user fee over time. That's the way to do it, rather than with a one-time development fee. So that's my 11-point plan. 12, I think what we need to do is have a different attitude that says that housing should be a right that everyone should have. And we've got to get away from this attitude that it's an asset that you can use as a piggy bank long term. It should be going up by GDP. It shouldn't be going up at 2 to 3 times GDP. And the reason why it has been is because we've been building far less of it. We're building less homes today than we were 20, 30 years ago, and that's a mistake. And I think that has robbed young people of the dream of home ownership. I think it has harmed the ability for economic development and economic growth in the Greater Toronto Area. I think it has led to outmigration from Toronto to Calgary, to cities farther afield. It is forcing young people to commute far longer distances. It potentially leads to the Manhattanization of Toronto. We just need to build more homes, and we need to figure out a way how. And I've given you 12 ways how. Thanks for listening. Good night. I remind you I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos go up on my website, on podcast servers, and on social media, and on YouTube as soon as my radio show goes to air. Good night, everybody. Thanks.